Right at the end of the day there, you did see 100% true. NVIDIA dropped back underneath 1100 right at the close. Welcome. We've got a lot of earnings to get to. I counted 9 big names there. I know you set the list of when they're coming out. I think the first we're expecting are Dell, Zscaler, Marvell, Nordstrom's as well. They're all expected at about 4 or 5, so we'll get those to you as they drop. But NVIDIA down 4.5%. The big story, all of the shorts going into the close. There was also TikTok news. Meta was down for a little bit. A lot to review. We're going to have Michael Noss stepping through as well. But wow, it's been wild. My first question, I got to ask you, did you trade any of the chips today?
I traded NVIDIA for AMD for like half a second, and I think my issue was I just kept trying to go short, maybe on things that were not. But yeah, AMD was happy with the management of it. I risked like 20 pennies, lost 20 pennies. But yeah, I took that short, I want to say, around that 165.70, maybe. No, maybe 164. I don't remember. I think it was around 164.70, maybe 164.60. But yeah, I didn't trade the chips as much as I should have. But I know there were some good opportunities on them.
Well, realistically, the end of the day was all the best ones, but you can't know that that's going to be the case.
True.
And everyone knows that Dara's got a lot of responsibilities. I mean, she put together this list that you see here. I have all the expected moves, mostly because Dara did the research, and preparing for everything in the aftermarket is going to be what it's all about. Remember, there was also Summit and Merck. Just to give you an idea what's still happening there, Summit made another break higher. It tagged $12. Sorry, check that. It tagged $12.70 in the aftermarket, so that's continuing to go. This is probably going to be a big-time runner. There's a level on the daily for Summit at $5.60. Yeah, I'm not making that up. I don't think we're going to see that again anytime soon. But it was like, I thought $5.60, but this is looking at $5.40. It doesn't really matter. It's a double up from resistance as a breakout on Summit Therapeutics. It's got a decent short float, 27%. There was a phase 3 trial that good for them, but apparently really bad for Merck. So it's only 2 minutes in here. I haven't really seen anything just yet. I'm seeing in the chat here people saying Costco spread is wild. We're not expecting Costco till 4:15, everybody. So I think Costco is one of the later ones. It would be Dell, would be the first big one to come in. And still nothing happening on Dell. They're down 5 points today. It was not a very good day for Dell. But maybe before we get any earnings coming out here, we might as well jump into a bit of a recap.
Oh, yeah.
TAN is back.
Really?
There you go. I mean, you guys can see what had a good day today. And I've got a decent one. But TAN, yes, finally, after a little bit of a pullback, FSLR had a good day today. This is always going to be the best of the best. But it had a nice little consolidation, a bounce play. They haven't even had much of a pullback, but a lot of those solar names have been in the tank. There was a good question about IWM, and someone wanted me to go over that. KRE, which we talked about with Raider Trader, bit of a bounce play for them as well. XBI up 1.7% there as well. It's very, very green. TLT, IWM are going to be pretty good. Where you saw weakness today, Nat Gas. So I'm glad I didn't make my Tellurian play yet. I needed to set up. Down 3.5%. Silver has been a good bellwether recently. Down 2.5% as well. ARC got beaten up. And if you can't figure out why ARC had a bad day, then you weren't paying attention to UiPath.
You're not on the right path. Yeah, I was going to say with that one, if you didn't know that was what was going on there.
I need the boom. I don't have that on my board. Because usually when you drop a pun in the midday era, when you hear that, 90% of the time, that is me. That was my request. You got the puns. I'm okay, but you're at a whole nother level up there. The Qs didn't have a very good day, but it's hard for the Qs to do well when we saw what happened to NVIDIA at the end of the day. And remember, it wasn't just NVIDIA. Google closed at the lows as well. Meta was closing near the lows. But we are at 405, so I'm expecting we're going to start getting some earnings through.
We got Dell.
Dell, oh boy.
Okay.
Oh boy, as Obi would say. Initial move 10% to the downside almost instantly on Dell. What do we have here? Because I'm guessing it's not going to be that good. Dell trading down 155, down 13% is Dell. Remember how big this was up going into these earnings, but it's starting to give it up here, so not looking good. MDB is also out, so Mongo is out, and it's another shellacking. 20% to the downside for Mongo. Oh my goodness, if you thought it was bad yesterday or this morning, and we had UiPath, you had, I mean, at least Foot Locker was good, but you had CRM was bad, but both these are looking pretty nasty to the downside. Marvell, I don't see it, but what are the numbers on Dell? That's the one.
Yeah, so Dell, the only miss I'm seeing here is adjusted operating income, 1.474 billion versus 1.485 billion expected. Other than that, they did slightly beat EPS, so adjusted EPS 1.27 versus 1.26 expected. Their Q1 revenue coming in here, 22.24 billion versus 21.64 billion expected, so that's also going to be beat. The only miss is a slight miss on adjusted operating income. That's all I'm seeing.
And sometimes that's all it takes, man. When you have a stock that has gone from, like at the beginning of May, Dell was $122.
That's shocking.
Like yesterday, we closed at $179. I mean, come on, like it's a 40% move, and we're not even through in 1 month, it's a 40% move going into earnings. One sign of weakness, and you can pull right back in. You're still in the money if you bought it at the open. But Mongo already to the downside. That was 20% when I last looked. But we just got Zscaler out, and morbidly, I want to know what's going on in cybersecurity land. Not morbidly, but I do own PanW shares. Zscaler is up 3%. So this was getting its butt kicked on the daily chart. I just wanted to make sure we have an idea where these things are coming from, because that's what matters more. But a little bit of a bounce here on Zscaler. That's more than, okay. I feel like that's more than, what is it, 3%? I guess because it closed here, it was down on the day. This is a 10% move bottom to top on ZS. But because this was gapped down from previous close, it's really only showing a 2% move. But that's a big move to the upside on Zscaler.
That's a good report.
So hopefully it's a good report here.
Oh yeah, I mean for Zscaler, you do have a pretty nice revenue and EPS beat, I do have to say. Adjusted EPS, 88 cents versus 66 cents expected. That is going to be a nice hearty beat there. In terms of what we got for revenue as well, 553.2 million versus the estimate of 535.9 million. So they beat by about $18 million for revenue.
Okay, that'll work. I mean, the way that the same thing works in the other direction with regards to like that and Dell. Like Dell was up, so they have to be perfect. Zscaler probably didn't have to do as much to get a bit of a bounce. Is Ulta actually out yet? Because
I thought Ulta was 410.
This is bamboozle. If it's not out, then there's some fat fingers. Just try not to be the person that punches the breakout.
Oh, they came out at
earnings.
405.
Okay, so apparently Ulta is out. This makes more sense because there's like a $30 range on Ulta Beauty. It went up to $398. It came down to $367, so that's a $30 range, and it's right back in the middle. So my guess is they're just trying to figure out what to do with this stock. That can be a good sign if the earnings were bad, if it's still right here. But the Ulta, this was another one that came into this all beat up, so it might not take much to get it going.
Yeah, Ulta, I'm not seeing all the numbers here. One thing I'm seeing that they apparently adjusted their annual guidance is they anticipate dynamics they faced in Q1 to continue for the balance of the year. So I remember a while ago as well, Ulta did have a little bit of concerns. I think they were at some meeting and they said, hey, there could be some concerns coming up. So that's not a great look for Ulta. They're seeing 24 comparable sales, 2% to 3%. I'm not seeing a lot of their actual numbers here, just some of their outlooks. So full fiscal year 2024 operating margins, 13.4% to 14%. Yeah, they're not seeing a lot of their the details here on this Ulta, but apparently we're getting Marvell out as well, so take a look at this.
Yeah, just one thing on Ulta. Shawn and I actually talked about this name. I know he likes it, but with that report, if it holds on to this bottom on the weekly after earnings, which is this 370 level, it's going to be pretty simple for me. If we hold this into next week and break 400, I want 400 long on Ulta, and that'll be a next week thing, and then I'll stop underneath 370. It'll be about 10% risk on that stock to maybe hold it back to the upside. I like that on Ulta, and as you said, we're going to have Michael Noss coming through, but last one might be Marvell here. I thought this might be worse for them. Only down, I mean, I say only, it just went down to like 71 was the low there, and the top was 77. That's not that bad. So really, we're down 1% overall. It was already getting a bit of a smackdown from the other chip names. You saw NVIDIA, you saw Micron, you saw AMD, you saw all of the chip names tanking. Intel wasn't that bad. But Marvell out, and not doing too poorly. It's actually right back into 75, so it looks like it's catching a bit of a bid here. Still no Costco. Costco, I think we're getting at 415.
415 for Costco. Yeah, Marvell here, bit of a revenue miss from what I'm seeing. Q1 revenue, 1.16 billion here versus 1.17 billion expected. That's going to be a mild miss there on revenue.
Yeah, it's only a 4% short float, but a lot of the chip names don't have. The larger chip names don't really have big short floats. That's why it's usually pretty volatile, especially when it gets a good report to the upside. This is not necessarily going to qualify, but I always feel like there's one that takes the cake, and as bad as anything else is, Mongo is taking it in the bongo right now. Down 30%. That is 2 days in a row. We have a 30% move to the downside. Yesterday and today, obviously, UiPath was down there, and Mongo getting absolutely smoked at this particular moment. So not good for MDB. Down a clean $100. Actually, 90. You guys saw it for a split second. It was down $99.99. It's now down $101. Otherwise known as 30% of a haircut. And if you think my haircut is low, then you're not watching MongoDB. Wow. Not good. Not good at all. But you know what? We can smile about something. We've got the NOS boss in here for a little bit of... I thought I'm allowed to hit it. Just give me 1 second to...
Oh, there you go.
I don't know what... I hit the button, it was already going, and then I don't know what happened there, Michael, but...
That's fine.
You got 3 introductions, basically, is the way it works here.
I'll take it.
It's been a little bit interesting the last couple of days for earnings. I know that's not necessarily... As a swing trader and a technical trader, the mess and the nonsense... and we had a guest on today, and we were just talking about like the ridiculous moves that we've seen on earnings. Sometimes that's not the place to be, and you want to be into something when they calm down. Like I can't imagine any technical trader looking at swings that you see on Mongo down 30%, and UiPath down 30%, and Kava going from down 10% to up 15%. When they settle down, they provide you with interesting information, but day trade, great. I imagine for a swing trader, you're in wait mode on any of those.
Yeah, and it's, I'm going to avoid any binary event that I can, not just earnings. If I know there's a FDA release or a big product or an investor day or something like that, I just kind of want to stay out, because as someone who, looks at algorithms and technical patterns, things like that, I'm trying to trade the 99% of, quote unquote, normal situations and then avoid these events, because it's not that as a technical person, I don't believe fundamentals move stocks. We know that fundamentals move, everything at the end of the day. But it's just the fact that I can't predict fundamentals, so I just have no business in getting involved there. So, I'll come back in at least 3 days after earnings report and then see how price reacted to it, and kind of let the people who do the math and look at all of those numbers decide what the price direction is going to be, and then I'll just kind of ride their coattails.
Analysts analyze, traders trade. It's no different from, I watch a baseball game in there, and they always have, you got 2 people in the booth, right? And like the 2 people calling the game, one of them's usually like a former player, and they're going to understand the ins and outs and what are the players going through, what's the strategy in here and there. And then you're going to have the actual play-by-play person who's just, great, usually like experienced in radio, whatnot. You got to stay in your lane. I love that about you, Michael. You're always kind of calm, knowing exactly what you want to get to, which leads me to, okay, so if we're not talking earnings, I know you're looking at something. You always have something brewing for us. So what is the look right now?
So it was funny when I was on, wouldn't have been this Monday, would have been last Monday with Shawn in the After Hours show. I was talking about the Dow, and I have the Dow up here as well. And I actually got some comments, and it's funny, the kids, I guess I'm an old man now, so I can't put myself with the kids, the new kids that are trading. They're like, who cares about the Dow? It's all about the NASDAQ and all these really hype names. But us old folks and us technical analysts, we like to look at the Dow. So last Monday would have been right on this candle here before this sell-off day. And I mentioned I am shorting the Dow because it may be giving us warning signs, and it was very relatively weak to the rest of the market. For those who don't know, the Dow is a industrial index. It has more of the quote unquote boomer stocks. So you're talking financials and has more energy and things like that in it. And it just kind of completely fell apart, giving me a clear warning that when things aren't agreeing, when you're seeing the Qs up and the Dow down, that it's time to maybe not, worry or sell everything, but it's time to take notice. So I put this Dow hedge on, and so far it's working phenomenally. So now what I'm trying to look for is what isn't selling. So Dow was relatively weak, so I wanted to short that. So now my hunting and pecking is trying to say, okay, now that the market is catching up and the SPY is barely holding on to this range, you notice how when the Dow broke this the March, April highs, it fell apart. We've broken now and we've closed below this on the SPY. Not saying that that's going to follow, but it has me more interested in finding things that aren't selling off and relative strength, just in case the SPY follows the Dow in this one.
Yeah, I think you've got the right approach there. I know some people we joke about the Dow and how relevant it may or may not be, but it still matters whether you like it or not. And I think it's a great signal for you. Just before we move on here, Costco earnings are out. It's not much of a move for everyone paying attention to it. It's actually flat compared to yesterday's close and trading a little bit lower here on Costco. It's not a huge move by any stretch of the imagination. I would consider this to be sometimes a relatively strong stock, but not a nasty move into the downside yet on Costco. But you've already seen a few names get shellacked that are, I don't know, what do we call them, best of breed in their group. I always like to say that you always have something. If you're trading a sector, or if you're trading a stock, there's always something that I'm keying in on. In addition to maybe I'm looking at a SMH if I'm trading Nvidia. Maybe I'm looking at Nvidia if I'm trading Marvell or AMD or something along those lines. And I think what you want to have is like what's relatively strong, what's relatively weak. And that's been very, very important recently as Nvidia has been giving it up. And if you think about that level on the SPY, Nvidia just gave back 5% today. So like you always want things for confirmation. I know that might not be your bag, but I know when I'm trading, if I can line up 2 or 3 reasons why I really like something, especially for a pullback in the overall market, I don't love it if Nvidia is holding the market up. And the fact that actually gave up 1,100, I think, can be a bit of a big deal. Do you, I know you're talking about the SPY in there, but how much do you pay attention to any of the individual big names? I'm talking specifically about the Apples of the world, the Nvidias, the Microsofts. Like when they're holding things up, would you back off a trade saying, we're still getting strength in these names?
It's to the point where, it's very, in my opinion, is very important. You can't have a single theme or a single security holding up the market. You just, for the long run, you can't. So earlier in the year, we saw Nvidia doing amazing, and then that started to drag up the entire market with it. Now we see most of the market actually falling, and Nvidia is just kind of holding us up. So when you see things like you saw today, where Nvidia gives up a bit, so does the whole market. And the way that I demonstrate this most is the chart I have up here, which is the RSP. So the RSP is an equal weighted index. So this has the exact same names in it as the S&P 500. All same 500 names are the same, except instead of weighting it based off how large the company is, every single stock gets an equal weight. So this gives you a really good idea of what the average S&P 500 stock is doing. And you can see where I mentioned that we broke these March, April highs on the SPY, and then we just fell back earlier today and closed below them. Now you can see if I look at this one, we never even got to those prior highs on the RSP before we've now sold off. So that just shows us that it was the mega caps were holding us up. And what you hope is that it's okay for a leadership group to take the lead like that, but you hope it brings the rest of the team with you, to use a sports analogy, right? You don't want one guy on your team doing all the work, but it's okay to have some star players that are leading the rest. But if it's everyone's dragging that person down, then when that person can no longer, score all of the baskets or the goals or whatever, then the whole team's going to fall apart. And that's kind of what I think we're seeing here, is that unless the rest of the market can kind of find its footing and push a little bit higher, then I think we may be in for just a little bit of trouble. Primary trend still intact. I'm talking, maybe over the next week or so.
Exactly. And look, I love that you bring up that equal weight, because I feel like it's the one. There are a few things in the toolbox for a lot of traders that not everybody even looks at. And I know that's one that's getting a little bit more importance, because specifically what that Mag 7 or whatever we're calling it these days, what's been happening with that concentration the last couple of years. So there's a little bit more attention to the equal weight, but it's a really important indicator. And that's especially weak. What you pointed out there, when you're holding a level, but it's not even getting there the second time, it's a lower high, but it's a consolidation, and then it fails underneath. Obviously, the only thing better than that for a reversal, in my estimation, is if it traps people breaking the top, because that's almost like the golden one. Like if there's just that one wick that trapped people on the breakout and then it does it, those are golden reversals. So I think you're onto something there. Just for everyone, Gap did come out, and Gap is up 20%. So
Gapping up.
Gap is gapping to the upside right now, because why not? We're going to have retail names doing ridiculous things in this earnings season. Every single day, there's one retail name up 20% and there's one down 20%, which is always fun for a day trader. But this is exactly why, Michael, you let the analysts analyze, because if you try to make sense of this, I haven't read the numbers on Gap, but I promise you that there's almost no chance this is a fundamental thing. It's a 15% short flow, and it's up 20% because there was something to like, and more importantly, there was something for shorts to fear. So if we're getting a market pullback, I know you talk about this all the time in terms of catalysts. You always look at heavily shorted names. Now, this is a 20%, 15% short flow, and it's running. We've seen a few in this earnings season with that same thing. I'm putting you on the spot here because I know you've given us your ideas already. I tend to do this to you, which is put you on the spot. Is there anything, we saw GameStop try to run again today. We've seen a lot of short floats go. We saw Summit with the Merck news. That was up like a bajillion%, and that had a 27% short flow. Is there anything short squeezable that might be on your radar for the next couple of days and weeks? Because I just feel like there's one or two a day that are going for our traders.
Nothing that I see right now, other than I was looking at this MindMed the other day, simply because it was up when the market was down. Because I think that's what you need to look at when you're looking for short float names, right? So, for example, we had MSOS up today, even though the market was down, and some of these cannabis names are heavily shorted as well. MindMed is psychedelic, so maybe kind of in the same genre. But the idea is that you need something for the shorts to be worried about. So if you look at, and I hate to pick on AMC, but I always do. If you look at AMC, the high of this was $600 a share, and now it's $4. The shorts here are not worried. The stock has to go up 1,000% before they would even be worried about maybe covering some shares. So when you're looking for short float names, you have to look for short float names that are up near highs. So what I'm doing a lot of when the market sells off like it did today and it did the other day, and you have these down days, is the easiest scan you can do in the world without getting too fancy is just say, okay, what was up today, right? The SPY was down. What was up? And you can start to go through some of these lists. Like if we take a look again, MSOS, you can see right here at the top showing absolute relative strength to the S&P 500 today. I know there's a lot of names in the cannabis sector that are heavily shorted, so that's where I'll go to look. So if you are looking for short float names, I would just load up your trade ideas. If you don't have it, make sure you're using TraderTV20 for 20% off at checkout, and make sure that you're just saying, I want anything that's up today or up over the last week or so that is heavily shorted, and I'm sure you'll find some good looking names. But for me, again, that's all I'm doing is what is not selling off when the market's selling off, rank that by short float and see what pops out.
Yeah, and MSOS there, CGC reported they're up 2% today, 16% short float. It's got higher lows on the daily. But you mentioned MNMD. I don't think that's not bad at all. I don't remember specifically off the top of my head the news. I know there was something this week with them, which can matter for a catalyst. But where it just bounced, you had the chart up for a second. I just wanted to show this again. On earnings, it's bouncing off of $8. So at post earnings, it's bouncing off $8 and had already made a move up 10% into $8.90. If I was short that stock, okay, well, you've already been scared when it broke 8 the first time. It pulls back and you're like, yeah, now it's in a downtrend. Ha, 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 shorts are winning again. If this gets back above $9 or $10, especially breaking this 50, that is the kind of catalyst I could get interested in, as you highlight, like 22% short float. So relatively strong. It's down 1% today, but it already moved 10% the last couple of days upside. So I think it gets a little bit of a pass. I think it's a good look, and I love that scan. When you see big moves or you have an idea, the first thing to do isn't necessarily to just, oh, what did I trade last time? What do I like? It's to actually do the diligence and go through not everything that makes sense. If you're looking for short float, maybe you say anything above 15% that was flat today or whatever, up 0.5% or up 1%, depending on what you want to look at. Maybe you want to have a volume scan as well, and then you go from there. And you can do that with trade ideas.
Yeah, and it's when you're looking at things that are heavily shorted, it's always just put yourself, just like you did there, Neil. I think that's absolutely perfect, where you have to put yourself in the short's shoes and say, if I'm short this stock, is there anything out there that's going to make me want to cover? So with that, MindMed had that 10% pop yesterday when the market was flat to down. So that makes me go, okay, well, the overall strength on this name is good, and that whatever it was occurred. You guys know I'm not paying attention to the news, but if I'm short, that's getting me a little bit nervous. And while you were talking, I just brought up one of my favorite short float scans that I have here, and I'm looking at this NVAX. I'm sure you guys were probably all over this. Every time I see a candle with giant intraday ranges like this, I can just bet that you guys were over this from a day trading point of view. And I'm looking at this the same way. So this has gone from $5 now to $15. We show a 32% short float that updates every 2 weeks. Officially, we get it right from the stock exchange data. So, unless all of those have covered, that to me makes me nervous. The stock has tripled off of its lows. Even if I'm short from way back when this was, $200 a share before its collapse, if I see something triple, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's time to push the button. So I take a look at something like this and I see, oh, that's a nice kind of coiling pattern around $15 or so. If we get a break, maybe that goes from there. And then I do just what you did. I put myself in that trader's shoes. I say, well, this absolute high of 1750, probably a lot of stops up there. So if we can get a move like that, those are the kind of things I look at from a short point of view. Again, I think you hit the nail on the head. You just say, okay, let me imagine that I'm short this name. When am I getting nervous? Or more importantly, when is the broker calling me with that dreaded margin call?
Yeah, which nobody ever wants to get that. But thankfully, I've never had one in my life. But I don't short stocks in my personal trading account. I only do it as a day trader on a prop floor. I think that's just a safe way to go about it. But as always, love the knowledge, Michael, and we appreciate you coming through on a bit of short notice. We kind of called you up in the middle of the afternoon show and said, hey, can you come on? We'd like to talk about what we saw here today. So some great ideas, and as always, check out Michael Moss on the X Machine, as we're supposed to be calling it. You can see down below, and check out Trade Ideas for some fantastic scanners. I use them on a daily basis. Everybody on the show does.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm actually going to put together my presentation for tomorrow. So make sure you're tuned in tomorrow morning too, and I'll be talking about something. We'll figure out what that is.
That's right. 8:45 tomorrow morning. Michael Moss will be on the morning show to prepare for another great trading day and trading week. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. It's going to be another wild one for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh goodness, thank you so much. And it's what's so great about it. What's so great about this, Adair, is like there's so much happening. Like I wanted to do some trade review, and we're gonna talk. There's so much we could have talked about, but I want to get back to Costco because it was the one that reported, obviously, like right during the interview. Costco is only down 0.4%, but there was a $30 move top to bottom, I should say, because it was to the downside. It's leveling off a little bit. In the grand scheme of things, Costco not really putting much of a dent. So anybody hoping to buy the dip on Costco, like you can squint. I don't think that's gonna cut it. So that the one doesn't have the distance, but the numbers on Costco quickly here if you have Madeira.
So they're actually not bad from what I'm seeing. Q3 pre-tax profit here coming 2.28 bill versus 2.23 bill expected. That would be a beat. Q1 net income 1.68 bill versus 1.65 bill expected. That is also going to be a beat. They also, they beat on quarterly revenue as well, 58.52 billion versus 58.07 billion expected. They're basically saying that there's strong grocery demand, so I'm not seeing a lot of negativity here in this report.
Okay, well, not a lot of negativity is not going to do it if you want to dip into 750, which is probably the price a lot of people are looking at, the 50-period moving average on the daily on Costco. So it's been ugly. MongoDB got absolutely smoked. Dell is still trading much lower, down 17%. I feel like it was down 20 a second ago and only down a slight bounce in Dell. Down 17%. It's Mongo that got really smoked. Nasty to the downside for them, 30% at the absolute bottom. So it's going to be another wild one tomorrow. Marvell wasn't all that bad, but you know what time it is. It's 4:30. Let's get a little roll call action, everybody. Big shout out to the NOS boss for stepping through. Thank you for all the love in the chat for him. And as we always do, let's start it off by thanking the two people that I should every single time. Adara for getting all the news for us, preparing the aftermarket show, especially when I step in for Shawn, because I don't do it on a daily basis. Right? I'm not in the flow of things as well. So thank you, Adara, for getting us prepped for this. Thank you to Bears versus Bulls. We love you, brother. Have a great one. It's been a great show. It's been a great week. We'll do it again tomorrow. The best moderator in all of YouTube. Big shout out to Rivian Millionaire with some nice words as yet. And if you could, Rivian Millionaire is asking for the Dell actual numbers.
I'm typing them in the chat for them right now, so that you're going to be getting those in 2 seconds. I just sent them in the chat.
See, look at this. It's like already answering the question before we can even get to it. She reads minds, everybody. That's how it does. How do you think the puns are so good? She knows.
Well, I saw it in the chat, and I was like, you know what? If we don't get a chance to read it, I'll type it out. There
you were typing before I had read it. So clearly, I mean, you've got young eyes. I'm an old man. I probably, somehow magically, I just didn't even see it for like a full minute, I'm guessing.
Well, I was tagged on it too, so it was like I saw the orange, and I was like, oh. But yeah, no, I'm just always happy to be here and happy to answer whatever questions I can.
That's what it's all about here. So let's get this roll call started. Rivian Millionaire, we got you. Michelle Meir, Rivian Millionaire. Wow, he just said thank you as well. So we'll make sure we got that in there. We got Monty G in the house. Nelio Frigilio. I like that for sure. D-Loaf, Luke, Be Fair Balance, Lava, Judge, Palantir tomorrow. Let's go Palantir. How many times have Shawn and I both been along in Palantir? It's been a while and it was a great one. Kapudi electronic music producer. Shout out to you. I bungled that, but it's all good. Andrew Chow, Mr. Westermeyer, well done to you as well, brother. Hans Beer, let's roll. Trader Buck, Monty, we got you. Dave, oh, I just missed a couple in there. Dave, Nick Chimo, Captain Jane, we got Elon, we got Jobu Sam. I love me some Jobu from Major League. That is my favorite, not real character, but kind of a character. If you haven't seen the movie, watch it, Adara. S. Samuel, Kathy Trollinger, TH, Alt Styles. We got Alaric B, Chuck of all trades, Kasim Palat, TH, Alvin, Monty G again, Daniel, Big Kyle Burdett. Oh, Kyle, you must have loved the shorts in the afternoon. Oh. That couldn't have been bad for you. Cal, if you didn't print, then you're not a short trader. Disc Drive, Neo Roberts. I like that one.
Oh,
I don't know if that's your real name, but I'll take it. Midnight, Scan QR, Buy the Dips, Hoddle. Great name. Howard 28, Philip Sanchez. We got Selena Martin's in the house, Lion Dog, Trader Drew, Ray, Dwayne Diesel, Daryl French. Let's go. It's been a hot minute since we talked to you. You're Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry right there. My favorite movie villain of all time. Well, not really a villain. Character of all time is Doc Holliday. The single best, and I'm going to stop for a minute here.
Okay.
The single best performance by almost anybody in any movie I've ever seen is Val Kilmer in Tombstone as Doc Holliday. And what's crazy about it is he's done two of the greatest performances, I think, of like a secondary character. He stole the show as Iceman in Top Gun, and he stole the show in Tombstone as Doc Holliday, and he was absolutely brilliant in that movie.
He's a good actor.
If you've never seen it, my goodness, Tombstone is absolutely
watch it.
Unbelievable. So shout out to everybody in the chat. We love you guys, and it's been a fun day of trading.
Oh, yeah.
Earnings were wild. I'm glad that Adara does the watch list because you've got your work cut out for you tomorrow.
Yeah, I was literally thinking about this. Like, also, just a quick little inside scoop. So in case you're wondering why some earnings names make the watch list every day and some don't, I go based on volume. I'm entirely based on volume. So we'll have to see what volume we get tomorrow, because that will be determining what we get. Also, I want to shout out Ramin. Thank you so much for staying late with us. Ramin here, killing it every single day. And also shout out to Fabian as well, our whole production team. Also, Bears vs. Bulls saying that apparently Mustache did make the top 5 tickers today.
Well, then why didn't we do it? Okay, see, I have an issue with this. We're gonna end the show in a second.
Yeah, I just had to say
We
that.
finally made Mustache a thing, and then we don't cover Mustache. We can't tell people, and I'm being serious. We can't tell people we will cover whatever you put in there, and then Mustache wins, and we don't go over the Mustache in the afternoon show. So I think that was a fail. I think the beard, I'm a beard over mustache for Sharif guy. He looks great either way. But it's a lot of fun. We try to have a little bit of fun here. And of course, thank you to the entire team. Thank you to everybody. We're right back at it tomorrow, where hopefully MongoDB stops falling and Dell can catch a little bit of a bid. It's more fun when stocks go up.
Oh, yeah.
We're Trader TV Live. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early 8:30 for more earnings plays.
See you guys.